Hi, Christopher. How are you doing today?
I'm great.
I'll tell you what, maybe it's because I'm a crazy Southerner that lives in the United States of America, but to hold this book, this is like a once upon a time story in the way that once upon a time, there was this prince that would one day become king. Well, he finally
Yeah,
did.
he did, and in not an easy way either. I mean, the guy's been waiting for 70 years, and the only person to come anywhere near that is Edward VII, who waited 59 years. So, and of course, along the way, it's funny because I've been covering the royal family for 49 years. And I was at Time Magazine doing it, and People Magazine. Ran the Royals coverage from the 70s and 80s. And I just remember covering the Silver Jubilee, the 25th anniversary of the Queen. I was standing in Westminster Abbey. The royal family comes up, and everybody's there, everybody except Diana. She's not in the picture
Right.
yet. And the difference between that family and the post-Diana family, royal family, is just, you can't believe they're the same people. I mean, it went from kind of a musty, dusty bunch to this dynamic, scandal-plagued, tragedy-plagued family, and it's just irresistible story.
Isn't that what we wanted, though? I mean, even as outsiders, we want that drama. We want those
Oh
hidden
yeah,
family secrets.
right, right. Well, they weren't hidden anymore when Diana came along. She really blew the lid off of everything, and and I'm very much team Diana. I think she was a woman who is wrongly portrayed as kind of neurotic now in the British press and kind of a troublemaker. I think she was somebody who went into that relationship with Charles, loving the guy. Like all women of that generation, he was, especially in England, bachelor number one, the future king of England. But she did love it, and he was 12 years younger than him, and she suddenly realized that she's walking down the aisle on her wedding day, that the woman sitting, in pew number 6 or whatever, and looking at her, she knows even then that Camilla is the love of Charles's life.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
what happened after that. I
Mm,
mean, just a
mm.
spectacular run of scandals.
Well, I knew as a young adult that when Princess Di was asked about love, I mean, her answer was so innocent, and then Charles just kind of uttered, and I'm going, well, that's kind of strange, because I would never say something like that when it comes to the subject of love or who I'm going to marry.
Right. I mean, it's an easy thing for him to do, isn't it? But he wasn't going to do it, even for the press. I mean, all he had, she said they were very much in love, and he said he didn't even have to say anything, but he said, "Well, whatever love is,"
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
very sarcastic way. And she looked at him. He can't control his emotions. He's a very complicated, paradoxical character. There are things about him that are very likable, things that aren't. He's got this huge temper, which we saw a little flash of, by the way, when he, during the after his mother died and he became king.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently, remember he sat down to sign some papers in Scotland, and the guy had cleared the desk off fast enough, and he had a little mini tantrum there. I mean, that's him. He has done things like, when he dropped a cufflink in the sink, he tore the sink off the wall. He tried to strangle one of his valets. He, when he couldn't open a stuck window, he threw a chair through it, and this was somebody else's house. He's capable of real rage, but you don't really see that. He seems
Right.
controlled most of the time. He even seems awkward and detached most of the time, I think.
Wow, his
But he's
actions are so much like a rock star. But even Johnny Depp had to repay for the room when he would destroy a room.
That's right. The king never has to. Then Prince Charles never had to pay for anything. But I mean, here's a guy. He's king of England, and he still travels with his teddy bear, childhood teddy bear.
Oh.
And so that's endearing.
God.
Although it is a 70-year-old bear, so it's getting kind of little rank.
I got to tell you something, Christopher. That when I saw the video of him with the writing instrument, because I am a daily writer, and I dip and I write, and I dip and I write. I laughed so hard because I'm very proud of the ink on my hands.
Not him.
Oh my
No, he
God.
was. No, he's, yeah, exactly. Well, he's he's the slightest thing can set him off, and often has. But look, he's somebody. If you look back at his, I think everything is rooted in that childhood of his, where he was
Hmm.
basically abandoned by his parents. We see the Queen, recent pictures of him with the Queen, and she's very, warm and fuzzy toward him, but that was not the nature of their relationship. I mean, he was just basically abandoned by both the Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, and he said it as much, and he would never give up Camilla, for example, and the Queen begged him to because it was ruining the monarchy. And
you and somebody who thinks that that you're going to hell. I mean, but it seems like Charles was going to hell on both sides.
Yeah, were you talking about Camilla or the Queen, or
well, I was talking about Charles, because I mean, I've always wanted to know how, I've always wanted a king. I just wanted to know what it was like to have a king in my lifetime, and so I've really studied his personality, thinking he's got to have darkness in there, but but he's also got to have compassion for real people.
Right. Well, I think I think he does. I think he has both, and that will make him. I mean, he is a world leader now.
Yeah.
Going to have to, and he's not somebody who's going to be I think one of the big misconceptions is that he's going to be sort of a placeholder for William and Kate. No. He's waited too long for this job. He even, and I reveal in the book, in 1998, tried to get his mother to abdicate, and she wouldn't have any of that. But he's going to make changes. He's going to knock some people off some royals, I think, are going to get demoted. It's going to cause a lot of and kicked off the payroll. That's the important thing. He's going to have a political say, even though he can't publicly make statements endorsing one party or over another. He is meeting with the prime minister every week, and he has absolute ability to voice any opinion he wants in private. And, that could be pretty influential right there.
Well, I was going to ask you, and I'm going to ask for the listeners through their eyes and stuff like that, because not everybody understands, the politics in England. But this most recent prime minister stepping down, he had nothing to do with that, correct?
No, nothing. No, he would have liked her to stay. I mean, because you want stability. You don't want to have other things going wrong while you're in your first few weeks of your reign. The shortest serving prime minister in history is pretty astounding. And by the way, I was, I think we were all shocked at how quickly the Queen passed away. I mean, she was perfectly fine meeting Liz Truss, the new prime minister then, and then a matter of 2 days later, passing away. I was shocked at him too. And by the way, the Queen's endorsement of Camilla, I find fascinating. That took everybody by surprise. It was something that I don't think William and Harry ever, they thought their father would, stick to his promise and never try and make Camilla queen, and she'd always be known as Princess Consort. So there's a little bit of, I think they're still a little upset about that. Yeah. And we'll see what happens.
So Charles's relationship with Camilla, is it one of the greatest love stories of all time, or is it still the greatest love affair of all time?
Oh, well, that's an interesting way to put it. I mean, it's certainly one of the most sensational and problematic affairs of all time. Mm-hmm. I mean, love affairs of all time. She is very, even though she comes across as a kind of a somewhat happy-go-lucky, approachable person, she had to do a lot of strategizing to get to this position. She had to tell a lot of lies over the years to get to this position, having this affair with, the future king, while at the same time being married to another man. And it's really, it's definitely somewhat of a dark story, I suppose. But anyway, she's going to be crowned queen. It'll be interesting to see what the reaction of the British people is. I think there's just going to be a lot of anger and resentment, because the degree of affection toward Diana is still very much there.
William is still up, though, right? I mean, if something happens to Charles, it doesn't go to Camilla.
Oh, no.
Good.
But Camilla is still, she's going to be. They keep saying queen consort. That's a recent kind of construction, a conceit, something they've invented very recently. She's going to be queen. She will be known as Queen Camilla, the same way Edward VI's wife was Queen Elizabeth. So she is the most important woman in the realm, and there's no getting away from that. Now, how she got to that position, if one traces all that she did, she picked Diana, by the way. Camilla and another of Charles's mistresses, Lady Cangatryon, picked, they drew up a list of 10 young women they thought would be the suitable mother of the future king's children. And at the top of that list was Diana. So Camilla really picked Diana, thinking she would be an innocent young girl who would just go along with everything. that's not she. And she made a huge mistake because Diana had a mind of her own.
I giggle like a child because we watched it. We got to see it, feel it, experience it, and through books like what you've got here, Christopher, is the fact that we're now passing it on to the next generation about what we went through all of these years.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing how many people really don't know or don't remember the story of Diana and how she was really the first royal who, I mean, she embraced AIDS patients at a time when nobody
Yes.
was, you weren't supposed to touch them. It was she dealt with the homeless, and she taught, walked through, a field of landmines. I mean, she did all of these really heroic things, very important causes, and got no love in return from the royal family or the men in gray, as she called them, who run the monarchy behind the scenes. Put through a lot, and of course, knowing all the while that her husband is cheating on her very publicly with this other woman. So yes, it's again, you can't make this up.
So, as close as you have been to the family for 45 years, like you mentioned, it's one of those things where, I mean, because you've had to live the National Enquirer, the Sun, and things like that. I mean, did you just walk past it and think you have no idea what you're doing here? You're spreading false news here, guys.
Well, it's there's no need to spread the false news. That's the thing. I mean, the reality was sensational enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I mean, I stick to the facts, man, because they're alarming enough. And some interesting things too that I don't think people realize how many times, for example, King Charles cheated death over the years. He just recently talked about the time he was in. No one ever knew this, and he just said this a few months ago when he was on his bicycle at Cambridge University. He was literally hit by a bus, and he said he had no idea how he wasn't killed to this day. Had he been killed, Andrew would be king. I mean, that's how the twist of fate would have worked. And by the way, one time he got he was during RAF training, because he had to train in all the military services. He got his feet tangled up in the parachute lines and was upside down and just kind of righted himself the last minute, or he would have been dead in a matter of seconds. Another time, just 2 weeks before Diana died, he almost went over a cliff, and his car lost control of it. Another time he was almost killed in an avalanche that killed his best friend. There was an assassination attempt that people don't remember in 1998, where a guy came up and fired guns. So it's all of those things. Anything, if he had ever been killed or died in any of those accidents, we'd just be looking at it. History would be different,
Oh my God! You just gave me a flashback, Christopher, of a book that I read with the Dalai Lama, in the fact that we've lived this life before, so we keep coming back to the same life. All of these things probably happened. It's just that now it's like, okay, let's run with this story. We've done everything else.
Yeah, I wonder about that. That's just almost too thought provoking.
But
too much going on up there.
I love the way that you described that Charles learned the way of the monkey. What a monkey does is by watching his parents, and so he studied his parents. I love it when people identify who the people are that they are inspired by.
Right. Yes, that's exactly his line. The I learned the way a monkey does by watching his parents. The trouble with that is he's very much his own man. I don't think he's going to be anything. I mean, I think he'll be like the Queen in that he does believe that the monarchy is something that he's now in his hands, and it's his responsibility to keep it going. He has that sense of duty and whatnot. But again, I think he's just much more. He'll be a much more kind of colorful figure in the long.
I'm looking forward to that, because Hollywood has painted the picture of the royal family and stuff like that all of these years. I want to see my real king, if you know what I mean.
Sure. And of course we have to get used to the king thing. Everybody says Prince Charles all the time, and constantly falling back. And the other two Charleses, by the way, King Charles I was beheaded. King Charles II was, he decided, to really just rule the country as an absolute monarch, but he kind of died a miserable and relatively young death. So I'm just hoping things are better for this one.
Do you think part of the visibility and the imaging of the royal family is going to change now, in the way that it's like, we need to get Prince Harry back home, we need to really kind of shape up the act here a little bit, or are we going to still do what we're doing, which I like the drama?
Oh yeah, no, the drama's not going away, and I think unfortunately, because there is Meghan, very, you know, there's Megan.
That's all you need to
And I
say.
don't, she's not backing down anytime soon, I don't think. And that's, you know, it's interesting. I mean, Harry, is he happy? Is he going to be happy? I think a lot of people think, of course, he's torn. But when you're born into that position, uh, you know, he did have a big role. He could have had continued to have a big role. I'm not sure, you know, kind of taking the approach they've taken. It didn't have to be this way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think that Charles would have given him enough rope to do what he wanted to do and still be a part of the working family.
Mm.
Uh, but the Queen wasn't. You know, the Queen is all about either you're in 100% or you're out. And I don't think Charles would have been quite that rigid. But now, you know, unfortunately, another metaphor here, but that ship has sailed, and getting Harry back into the family, knowing that this book is on the horizon, to only be more, obviously there'll be more revelations and explosive details about, you know, what goes on, embarrassing details about what's happening in the royal family. I don't think they're ever going to, and I certainly don't think Archie and Lily are going to be given
Right,
any
right.
title.
Yeah,
That sort of,
yeah, they're going to be in the shadows and stuff like that. And of course, you know,
yeah.
for a listener, one of the most important questions is that, are you sending this book to any of the writers over at the Crown so that you can get your story in there as well for some of these future seasons?
Oh, they're reading these books. I've written, you know, this is my 8th book, and believe me, I recognize an awful lot. You know, what are you going to do? But yeah, I mean, I interviewed I think I was the only person who interviewed the doctor who treated Diana in the tunnel. You know,
Wow.
people and all the nurses who handled her body. You know, I described, you know, how Charles's reaction to seeing her for the first time, and how it looked as if he was going to pass out. Diana's body, I mean, in Paris. All that stuff that, you know, detail that people. Well, we'll see how it's portrayed in the Crown. I mean, I think nobody likes the Crown more than the royal family.
That's right.
It seems unusual, you know, but they do seem to like it. Harry likes it. So what are you going to do? Maybe
Well,
they're not connected. Maybe they're not seeing it the way we see it.
you were born at the right time in the right place, sir, because what you're doing with this royal family is you really are keeping us up to date, and we will continue to grow with you because we see your name on a book, and it's like, you got to get it. You got to get it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, Christopher.
Perfect. I will absolutely take you up on that.
Excellent. Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
Okay. You too.